I spend a lot of time snarking on these coaches that don't have a professional setup. Maybe they film from their bed. And yet, here I am, the pot calling the kettle black, if you will. What's up, friends? Welcome back to the channel. Hi if you're new here, hi if you're not. My name's Danielle. I make a lot of content here on YouTube, specifically debunking the life, business, and spiritual coaching spaces. Why? Because there's a lot of problematic shit happening in this space and we need to talk about it. As you can probably tell by the title, the thumbnail, we have an interview today with a gentleman who went thousands of dollars deep into a very famous coaching program, which I'm not going to name, but you can figure out on your own. If you're someone who's interested in multiplying your business by more than 9 but less than 11, I'll let you figure that one out. That's who we're going to be talking about today. So if you enjoy this content, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you're not already. If you have a scam story of a coach that you worked with that you want to talk about here on the channel, the form to submit your story is linked in the description. I want to give a big shout out, thank you, to my channel members, specifically the Millionaire VIP tier, and of course, my friends in the Rich Billionaire Club. If you're interested in learning about the channel membership, click the join button down below. Let's go ahead and jump right into the interview.
I went from being a carpenter. I used to do that for 12 years. I used to build sunrooms, like fully glass glazed Victorian style sunrooms. And there was just, periods of time where I noticed the guy I was working with was super miserable. He was, an older guy. He was 65. And I just realized, like, that's not something I want to be doing, manual labor until I'm that old. I could just tell he wasn't happy with his life. And that was something that kind of the light bulb went off where I was like, man, I got to figure something out. So that is kind of where it started. There was a lady that I worked for on the side who was just someone I built a sunroom for and ended up doing side work for her for about 8 years. Long story short, me and her ended up going into business together. And that's where out of all the businesses we looked into, from real estate, gemology, like Subway franchise, all these different things, we ended up doing the legal marijuana grow operation for some dumb reason. We thought that was, she thought we were going to be millionaires with that. And back in 2015, that was kind of on the cusp of becoming legal in Washington State. So yeah, we did it, and we didn't go in the legal side of it. We were doing, black market, as they like to call it. So that was my first introduction into entrepreneurship. I walked away from my job that I'd worked for a decade and went into something I didn't know anything about. I smoked a little bit of weed, but I certainly didn't know how to grow it, manufacture it, all that stuff, and market it. Like, I didn't know how to market. So anyways, here I am jumping into this, and next thing you know, I'm on the streets getting robbed, shot at, mailing pounds in the mail. I was really just being stupid. And when I think about it now, it's actually important for me to talk about this part of the story because she was a mentor to me. And, my journey and what I went through with community is I was looking for mentorship, or I actually wasn't looking for it, but it came into my life and I took him up on it. But she was a mentor to me. She had everything that I could want, the multi-million-dollar house on the lake, the sunroom, her own gym. She had everything. And, the yachts, the jet skis and all that. So I kind of looked up to her, but I didn't realize until I got into business with her that she really only cared about money and at all costs. And that's why I ended up in those situations. And so after 2 years of doing that, I walked away from that entire industry and started all over. And then that's when I started my own construction company doing sunrooms and all that outdoor living improvement that I had done the previous 12 years. And I was doing really well in that company right around when COVID started, was 2020, back when the whole economy was in a state of fear and uncertainty and a little bit of doubt. Like, even the best companies had a little bit of uncertainty going on. And I had already been a year and a half in, and I came across a book and I started listening to that audio book in my truck. And all in all, it was good messages. There were some concepts behind it that were positive, about doing more. But what I didn't realize at the time, which looking back now, I can see how it happened. There's a lot of like NLP going on with that, used in a bad way. A lot of seed planting, a lot of statements that are structured in such a way that kind of suggest that you should seek him for the answers, seek him for the success. He's done it all. You don't need to do it yourself. Come to him. He'll show you exactly how to do it type thing. Get in proximity. A lot of statements were really geared to get you to chase him for it. And I didn't see that. And with a little bit of uncertainty, and, I can honestly say that I really didn't know myself completely at that time. A lot of people are embarrassed to say that, but I'm not, because I know myself very well now. But at that time, even though I was a successful business owner, that little bit of uncertainty got to me, and just wanting to do a little bit more and wanting to scale. And then the whole pandemic thing going on, I didn't realize that he got to my head. He really did get inside my head. And next thing you know, I was taking his statements literal, like, commit first, figure the rest out later. He likes to say, get in proximity, all that stuff. I literally started just forking out thousands of dollars to get in the room. And that's how I got introduced to the community from there, and then ended up becoming a business coach for his company. I believe so much in his message and all that. So that's kind of how I started from being a regular employee, doing something, I had a skill, into separating and then getting into a mentorship type setting, where I was trying to really grow my business.
So just to clarify, you were saying you like started listening to the audiobooks or whatever, and then you attended like a live seminar. Is that what happened?
Yeah, he puts on this yearly big event. There's thousands of people there, and that was the first event I went to. And I bought so much that I don't even remember like my first purchase. I had like 12 university accounts, 10 for my company, and then yeah, it's pretty wild. So I believe it was Growth Conference was the very first one, the biggest event, and then I started buying a bunch of stuff. Now I will say this before I forget. Again, it's so clear for me to see now. Like, they really like drain you at these events. I figured out now that there's like, this is well thought out. They get you up early. They just completely brainwash you and pump you full of, their agenda, and then they start drilling you with upsells and aggressive upselling, like while you're trying to eat lunch. They give you free alcohol. And again, a lot of people might hear me and mistake this for me, like, complaining or not holding myself accountable. Obviously, I'm a grown adult and I have a part I played in it, but I also call it what it is, and there is some accountability on the other side of that for them. And I know that is all planned. 3-day events, and then here you go, a bunch of free alcohol, and then all the vultures, these sales reps just come drilling you left and right. Not the best time to be making decisions, and that's a lot of where my purchases were made, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think that it's interesting you bring up that point, because a lot of the pushback that I'll get from coaches who find my content is this idea of personal accountability. Well, you're an adult, you get to choose how you spend your money, da 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 da. But it really negates the fact of a few things, I think. One, your mental state at that time. A lot of the times when you find a coaching program or buy into some sort of mentorship, you're often in like a very vulnerable position, or you're facing a very specific problem, and this person presents you with this like magic solution that you're looking for. The other piece, and that kind of leads into what you were talking about, is a lot of these large scale coaches are so well trained in the psychology of how to get people to buy that they craft the perfect environment. I know Tony Robbins is big on this too, of creating these excessively long events where you're in there for 10, 12, 14 hours. You're exhausted by the end of it, but you feel so motivated and excited to, up level your life or your business or whatever thing they're trying to sell you on, that
Right.
as soon as they're like, we have this program, but it's $10,000, you're like, no problem. I'll do anything to, feel this good forever.
Yeah.
So I think that when you have this attitude of like, well, it's your own fault if you get scammed, you're really not addressing the deeper issues and the more evil intentions, I think, at play in this industry as a whole, of like, these people know what they're doing, or maybe some of them don't, but it's all carefully calculated to get you to buy into whatever it is they're selling.
Yeah, you said, or some of them maybe don't know what they're doing. I honestly think that is the case for some of them too. If I had to guess, my opinion is that's not what's going on with. I think he's been trained to do
No, if
that.
you're at the top of the pyramid, I have no like doubt that you know what you're doing. But
Yeah,
someone who's just like blindly following him and starts their own thing, maybe they don't realize.
yeah. And I got terms for these. I didn't know it at the time, but one of the terms I brought up in that was the misguided mentor. And That's what these guys are doing. And to your point of like, some of them don't even know what they're doing. They are lost leaders with false confidence that have really been misguided themselves. So they're literally just modeling and mimicking what they've been taught or what they learned from somebody else, which is the wrong thing.
I absolutely agree. And so I guess I'd be curious to hear more about your specific journey of, you said you were attending these events, you're buying into these programs. So where did that end up leading you in terms of like how deep did you get into this?
Yeah. So the very first event I went to, I think I bought, that I can remember. That's crazy to even say. The only things I can remember buying was the business coach program, which was at that time called, where you essentially become, it's almost like an MLM structure, except it's not structured like a pyramid. You definitely get put in a position where you get certified to train his stuff. You get certified to get brainwashed by his agenda and the way he teaches stuff, and then you can now sell his stuff and promote his stuff and get a commission. So I bought that. It was $25,000, and then it was another $1,000 annually after that. I also bought a business summit that I never did take. That was one program actually that they never followed up with me on. Nothing was ever said. And I didn't even realize until later. I bought so much stuff that night. I was just like, oh yeah, I think I spent $5,000 on another course. What was that again? I mean, it was so crazy. And again, that was not smart of me, right? Whatever. That's my accountability part of it. But I'm telling you, I got to say this part too before I forget. It can happen to the best of them. After going to so many of these events, I've seen some high level, very, very successful people in there. I'm not going to name drop people, but very successful people in these rooms and in this atmosphere, drinking the same Kool-Aid, spending the same amount of money, glorifying the same person. And I make it a point to emphasize to people, it can happen to the best of them. It's not just middle class. Like it's all across the board. But yeah, that was the first event. And I just spent, if I had to guess, it was probably 40 or 50K that night. Just trying to think back on that. And that was my first ever event.
Right. And then from there, you become a certified coach. Did you end up then like coaching other people?
So it's supposed to, the way it's presented is that it's all this, another thing that's bullshit. They put this in your head that it's third party validation. So like just having brand gives you credibility, right? And it goes so deep as far as, I'll never forget this. The best way to explain it is to explain a story of how it was brought to my attention. So my website developer was rebranding it, right? And I was telling him, I was like, hey, just put all these companies that I've helped. And it was like Google, Ford, Chevy, these massively big businesses, because that's who has helped, right? And that's what they told us to do. Because they're like, yeah, even though you have it, you kind of have, because you're a partner with us. And my website developer was like, have you helped these businesses? And I was like, no, but, and of course I was all up in it in the Kool-Aid too. And I was like, no, but he has. So that kind of by default means, I'm certified to do that. And I have too. And he's like, I wouldn't put it on your website, dude. He's like, that's not even true. Like, why would you do that? I'm like, just put it on there. Me and him were just headbutting on it. I was like, just put it on there, dude. And he's like, man, you are so fucking lost right now. And he was trying to tell me I'm in a cult and all that. Finally, I thank God I didn't put it on there, but that's kind of how it's presented is what I'm saying is kind of what I'm getting at by that story, is that they really try to make it. They also say stuff like, they do masterminds for the business coaches a couple times a year. And every time I went, the same question we had brought up. It's like, how are we going to teach people to scale multi-millions of dollars or $1 billion company when we've never even made like $100,000 in our own company or anything like that? And they're like, well, you're partners with us, so you can tell them that you have. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. And these are like some people that are super young. So yeah, that essentially what I'm saying, without going into the weeds with all these stories, to answer your question, is that I did become a business coach and I didn't really, I had a construction business, so there's no way to really implement strategies that he used to sell me to now for me to use on my own customers. And then I have my employees like training on you, which I feel so bad about now, you know what I mean? Trying to get them brainwashed into that as well. But that was pretty much the agenda, is I buy into this, now I implement and just keep absorbing myself in his content and staying committed and loyal and idolizing him, and then bring in as many people as I can. And in a sense, now that I think about it, that is an MLM. Without even talking about it, I've rallied up some people without even with any transaction, just by really just kind of vouching for him, which is quite
Yeah,
crazy.
it definitely is like follows a similar structure of MLMs where it's like I pay this guy, then I recruit people and they should also pay this guy, and it becomes very messy very quickly, I think. But I'm just trying to get like a clear picture of what's going on. So you have this business, you become a coach, then like what's happening? Is your business actually growing? Is it not? Like do you keep buying more certifications? Like, how does this keep going?
So the year that I got involved, went to GrowthCon and all that, that was actually my best year during COVID, ironically. But I was already on that trajectory to do that anyway. I equated it to him because I was trying to promote him, saying like, yeah, I was because of I scaled my business. That's all bullshit. And like, it was total complete bullshit. And I was going to do that anyway. And it actually, if I had to guess, actually did worse when I started implementing his strategies. Because look, the way he sells and the way he teaches people to sell is with deception, manipulation, bullying, interrogation, harassment. Literally, that's what it is. And that's one of the things I'm trying to change in the industry and the way it's being taught, is because that is what it is. And I started, it's funny thinking about that now, is when I started implementing that into my sales process, asking hard questions and really just probing and pressing, it just felt wrong, and it wasn't me to begin with. And so the sales that I did make with that tactic, it didn't feel good. And to me, that's not success. I hear a lot of people say, well, he must be successful. He's got a lot of money. I'm like, if I don't equate money with success. There's plenty of people out here that are making a lot of money. Does that mean they did it ethically? Does that mean that what they're doing to get that money shouldn't be illegal? Like, there's a lot of things that aren't really being pulled back. The layers aren't being pulled back enough on that. So that is what happened, though, to answer your question. I started implementing these strategies into my business, but the results I got would have been the same results I got. It was just more unethical. And ironically, thank God I still had a little bit of me in the business. I wasn't completely just a puppet, but I did consume it, and I did, model and mimic his really unethical ways of selling and doing business. And it didn't feel good. But like I said, I think I was only able to salvage it because I still had my good heart. It was fighting with it the entire time, but it was still apparent I had a good heart and cared about people.
And so were those red flags apparent at the time, or was that something you kind of realized after the fact when you sort of stepped away from it?
So yes, the red flags were there, but the way I like to explain it, as far as the best way I can describe it is a red flag that came up, absolutely, several of them. But when it happened, I would justify in my head why it was okay. Or I would,
Super common. I
yeah.
see that with everyone I talk to. And I mean, that was my experience too, of like, that seems weird, but everyone else is doing it, so it must be fine.
Isn't that crazy how that happens? That goes back to the NLP stuff that we were talking about earlier. It's a very real thing. And, there's a lot of reasons for that. Fear of not fitting in the community, it plays a huge factor of it too. Not being the odd man out. But yeah, the red flags were there. But the moment it came, I had clarity on the red flags. It's probably not like a lot of people, maybe, I don't know. But, I had, without going into like a whole spiritual conversation, there was something that happened to me 2 weeks prior to me actually coming out publicly with that organization. And it was pretty much just the best way I can describe this is it was like a feeling to sit down, pay attention to all the red flags I ignored over the last 3+ years. And it was like kind of like your life flashing before your eyes type moment. All of them, every single one of them, just right in front of me. I could vividly remember every single one. It was so crazy. And it was like an aha moment. I was like, wow, how did I not like call that out, or why did I brush that under the rug? And it was very clear, like that was when I made the decision. It was like in that moment. And then I was like, all right, I'm giving myself a week. When Friday comes around, I'm coming out about all this. But then Thursday came around, and I I got the feeling I should talk about it then. So it came a day early.
So what was that process like of being so sort of heavily involved in this space to then deciding like, okay, I'm done with this and I'm going to talk about it? Like, what was that sort of exodus like?
It was quite liberating. Yeah, I mean, gosh, it's such again, I talked about how I didn't know myself and had a little bit of uncertainty going into that. So you can imagine it was the exact opposite coming out of it. I was like, I know who I am. I know what that's not me, not in alignment with me. I know I care about people. I know how to treat people right. And so it was just like, this is the decision. Let's do it. And then the decision to call him out by name, uh, you know, it's an interesting thing because when you don't know yourself, you invite fear. And with me actually knowing who I am, the fear is almost obsolete. Like it's so quick to get snuffed out. It's like 1.2 seconds and I'm over it. I don't care what the fear is. And that's what happened. I was like, oh shit, am I really going to call this guy out? I thought about it for a quick second and I was like, of course I am. I have to. I'm not here to really convince anybody of anything. I'm here to just share my story and wake people up and bring awareness to those red flags we're talking about. And it's up to you to discern whether or not you know what I'm talking about, and if those dots are connecting for you, whether now or later. If you're in that environment, you're gonna know. I hear people every day. I get messages from people telling me like, I know exactly what you're talking about, and you're clicking on every single point that you talked about. So they got to hear how it happened to me because it's happening to a lot of people. So I didn't even overthink it. I was like, this has to be done.
I appreciate that perspective. And I think that I'd be curious to hear more about like the specifics. So I know a lot of the times when we're in these sort of like group programs, masterminds, whatever it was that you were involved in at the time when you left, what the actual exit was like. Because I remember thinking back to like the second or third business coach that I worked with and having to like break off that relationship with her was really, really scary to me because we had a very, like, we would chat one-on-one quite often. And so for me to have to be like, you're not actually helpful and I don't want to keep paying you, like having to do that was really scary. And I know just based on the conversations I've had with other people who are involved in these like high control groups, for lack of a better term, the actual like, how do I get myself out of this environment? That piece can be really hard for people. So if you could speak a bit to that experience, especially because I think our identities get so wrapped up in these groups and these people that we associate with. What is it like? What was it like for you to kind of like extract yourself from this thing that had been such a big part of your life for so long?
It was, again, going back to the liberating moment. It was so liberating that it was just piece by piece, but it was all at once at the same time. So what I did was I sent them a pretty professional and compassionate letter, actually. And by the way, all of this is documented from day one when I made this decision. If you go into my Instagram highlights, there's a highlight called My Old Mentor. You can see from the first email I sent him, and it said something like, hey, just so you guys know, I'm voluntarily leaving this organization. I want nothing to do with it anymore. Go ahead and cancel my email and cancel my universities I paid for. I'm not going to be involved in any of this anymore. Furthermore, I would like to invite to like an Instagram live or an interview to talk to me about, I have a question as far as like why he taught me the things that he did and why he thinks it's okay to treat people the way he does. I said, that's the least he can do for me. And I said, like, with compassion at the end, very professional. And thank God I documented all this stuff so that people can't call me a bluff or think I'm bluffing on this. But obviously they did not respond at all. And then I started realizing like, I'm not going to get an answer from them. They think they're just going to literally put me in a hater box and get rid of me. So then I started making posts calling him out directly, saying, hey man, I want to know what's going on, tagging him, all that. And then whoever was running his Instagram account was noticing, they were following my stuff. Obviously it caught some attention. They finally blocked me. And so that's kind of where that stopped. And so I wasn't able to actually get to them. But so that's the way I exited, just generally speaking. But then there was the part where all the people I was friends with in that atmosphere, and not only that, the other business coaches, they all knew me. I was also one of like the more dedicated ones. Even to this day, it's been 5 months. it's taking a while to get my identity back and for people to take me seriously. I think they get the drift now. But at first, definitely for a couple months, they were like, oh, this might be a phase, or oh, this is. And when it first happened, they thought it was clickbait or marketing tactic, you know. And so I started getting on calls with people, and they were like, what happened? What happened in the organization that made you decide this? And so I spent, you know, the next month or two talking to people who were my friends, trying to, you know, sharing my story and not trying to convince them, but just like wake them up and in hopes of them, you know, clicking. Here's the crazy part. Not one person disagreed with me. Out of the 30 business coaches I talked to, every single one of them said, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, there's some red flags for me. Yeah, I'm not down with that. Yeah, I don't agree with that. But guess what? They're all still in it. They think that they can malleate themselves and still be themselves while still, you know, promoting that. And I'm like, man, if you got energy tied to that, it's negative energy that it's basically, you know, it's affecting you. Let's put it that way. So that's pretty much what it looked like, though. Me just literally calling him out on social media by name, which I still do to this day. Obviously, he's not seeing much of it. Now he's seeing it on YouTube because I'm getting on podcasts, but on Instagram, they had just started, you know, and again, that goes into the Scientology part of it, which I had no idea about, but they pretty much were disconnecting from me. And also encouraging other people to do the same too, because one of my friends told me like, hey, I got a call from prizes, and they were asking me like, why are you liking Ben's content? Why are you following him still? And suggesting that she should disconnect from me.
We got to drown out the haters because what we're doing is fine. It's your bad mindset, your bad attitude. That's a you problem.
Yeah, I guess I don't apply myself.
Exactly. So what has aside from, I guess, like obviously doing the advocacy work that you're doing, what was sort of next on your journey? Like, how is your business doing? What are you up to?
I am changing the industry and sales and business and what is being taught and getting back to what it should be. And that's caring about people. And that's really just, you know, being ethical, for lack of better terms. And then when it comes to like the red flags for, you know, bringing awareness to self-serving entrepreneurs and misguided mentors, it's like, just get in touch with your conscience a little bit more. There's red flags that you are experiencing. Everybody has it. I talked about how I was dealing with it. You talked about how you were dealing with it. And there's something in us that leads us to ignore that. And if you just make it really simple and just say, hey, does this feel good? Does this feel bad? If you really just pay attention to your conscience, you'll know what to do and what not to do. It's pretty simple. And so that's primarily what I'm doing. And I'm jumping on podcasts like this. I'm actually going to start my own podcast. I've gotten so many emails and comments and stuff like that where everybody's just like, you need your own podcast, dude. And so luckily Matt's going to help me out with that and get me set up. So we're going to actually talk about that tomorrow. So keep your eye out for that, because I'm super excited. As you can tell, I like talking. So it's only right.
No, that's awesome. And it's nice to see that, although I feel like a lot of the times when you have a negative experience or you end up in these sort of like coaching cults, basically, it can either destroy you or you have the opportunity to kind of like learn from it, move into the advocacy space and sort of make things right. And so it's nice to see someone who's gone through that experience and is trying to make better of it. So,
you know, I guess I needed to go through it. The way I like to put it is that, you know, I needed to go through the dark to see the light. And unfortunately, it took 3 years in that industry, and it took, you know, 40 years for my entire life to actually be waking up like that. But I'm just happy that I was woken up, because I've seen people older than me that don't know themselves and are completely in that deep. And I can't imagine, you know, I mean, I just hope I can encourage other people to talk about it too. One thing I say, the one thing that you said that caught my attention, I only looked at a few of your posts, but the one where you said, coaching coaches to coach coaches. Holy shit. I was belly laughing so hard when I heard you say that.
that's like the most common phrase on this channel. It's just like, what is the actual business though? If we're all just coaching each other to start coaching businesses, like where's the actual value add? Because I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist.
Exactly. And that's a very real thing too. And so, yeah, I'm really glad that you put it that way, because that's exactly one of the things that's happening here is like you're being coached so that you can coach other coaches. And a lot to say with that statement. You know, there's a lot of coaches that are teaching stuff they've never done before themselves. You know, thank God I have a construction business. I still have it and it's doing well. And I can actually say, hey, I've done this. I've scaled this business. I've made money with this. And so it's not like I just jumped into a coaching space to coach you how to be a coach.
Exactly. And I think that's like, it could be a whole other conversation, but I know in like the female business coaching space outside of like the tech community, there are so many women who call themselves business coaches, but their only business is like being a business coach. And I'm just like, you don't even know what a real business is. You don't know like what it's like to do a market analysis and understand, you know, what those people need and how to craft an offer and sell it to them, other than like, I'm going to teach you how to become a millionaire. Even though I haven't done it, we're just going to like skirt over that. But I got all the secrets, so pay me money. It's like,
It's so funny. Yeah, I find amusement with that. So when you said that, it definitely caught my attention. I was like, holy shit, that's definitely something that has to be talked about.
for sure. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. And yeah, just keep your eyes peeled because, like I said, I'm just getting started and there's a lot of big things on the way. So
All right, friends, thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed this interview. Be sure to leave your feedback in the comments down below. Again, if you have a scam story that you want me to read here, or you want to come on and you want to share it with the audience, tell the class how you're feeling, fill out the form down below. That's going to be it for today's video. I'm going to leave you on screen here with an interview I did a couple of weeks ago featuring an individual who actually is a life coach. And surprisingly, we got along pretty well. So if that's of interest to you, click there. I will see you in my next video. Take care, comb your hair. Bye-bye.